Hey, dear listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, the tell-all. Let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, everything I say in reaction to these shows is completely speculative, based on very little information. But let's watch.
What do you think your family and friends are jealous of?
We look good together. We shine. So when you shine, people try to dim your light.
Okay, so apparently they're having some trouble months after getting married with conflict or distance with family and friends, and Jibri is conceptualizing it as they're jealous of him because when people shine, people try to bring you down. And certainly that can be the case. I mean, of course, he would know better than I would, but I wonder if there are other possible reasons or just entirely different reasons as to why there's distance.
Think that Jabri's mother is jealous of you?
I'm definitely not trying to compete with anyone, but there has been a weird energy, definitely.
Okay, so Sean asks, Miona, do you think Jabri's mom is jealous of you? Yeah, I would be unusual. It could be the case. It certainly didn't look that way. I think it was more what I was saying earlier, that the mom is just sure that he will always make bad choices, and it's her job to micromanage and save him from himself, which probably was the case when he was younger and might not necessarily be the case now. I mean, who knows? And what I've been saying from the beginning, it's like, well, what's the worst case scenario? They get married and they get divorced. I mean, a lot of people go through that. It's not the end of the world. I think Jabri's mom is divorced, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, it happened. And maybe that's part of it, actually. I don't know. Just speculating that the mom really went through a hard time with her first marriage, I don't know, or first relationship, and is trying to save him from that. It's a common reason for codependency and micromanaging and overfunctioning, is that parents will not have resolved their own grief or pain regarding their own difficult life experiences and will be way overblown in their attempts to reduce the risk of their children having the same kind of consequence or bad experience, and will either create other problems or even inadvertently create the repetition, because the kid will just be like, well, I'll show you, or you don't give a kid a chance to learn from their own mistakes because you're micromanaging, and thus they will make the same, mistake. Anyway, so there's that. But yeah, so Miona's saying diplomatically, well, I don't want to say, but she's basically saying that the mom might be jealous. But what she's saying verbatim is that there was a weird dynamic, which there seemed to be, yeah.
If there's a problem with the mother-in-law, then it's kind of on the son a lot of the time, because the son maybe is not giving the attention, or maybe Miona sort of came off as being a little bit defensive.
Okay, so Ariella is providing a conceptualization. She's saying it's on the son if there's a problem. And I would say, yeah, I mean, I don't know what Ariel's saying precisely, but yeah, if he had done things a little I mean, there were, at the very beginning of the season, I was really proud of him or happy or thought he was being very healthy in that one of those early conversations, because she was micromanaging in my estimation, and he was saying, look, Mom, I get it, thank you for caring for me, but I'm just going to have to make my own decisions, and I feel good about this, and maybe I'll make a mistake, but I'm willing to live with that. I'm not going to blame you or anyone. It's just my life, and I'd like to have your support in that. I thought that was the perfect thing to say, and that's what I will try to engineer in families as they go through the transition away from codependency and micromanaging. The mom seemed to react okay to that, or at least had been resigned to it. And if I were to extrapolate, I would say that with the topic of differentiation, Murray Bowen's concept developed 70 years ago, is still a useful concept in relationships and families. And the idea is that as we develop in a healthy way, we learn how to differentiate ourselves from other people while staying connected with them. And we learn how to differentiate between our emotional reactivity and our intellect and our reasoning ability. And we can call upon either internal guidance system, depending on the situation. We can think through situations in a more healthy way. And that is one definition, you could say, that typifies maturity, the ability to see a situation and not overreact or react emotionally when it's appropriate, that kind of a thing. And the ability to differentiate yourself from other people. It's like, oh, okay, well, someone else has a thought about me, but I don't have that thought about me, and they're okay to have that thought, or they're okay to have those feelings, but they're not my feelings. And so it's kind of bothersome, but it doesn't ruin me. Whereas when you're younger and less mature and someone has a thought about you, it could really destroy you because you haven't differentiated yet. You haven't had the ability to say, okay, you're over there and I'm over here. And in this instance, I kind of want to keep you at a distance because I don't really agree with what you're doing. And then also voluntarily merge with people when it's safe to do so. So the idea goes is that Murray Bowen put forth and observed in himself and his clients that you can be differentiated for a while, but eventually it will break down. That he said that even the most differentiated, most mature, healthy person, about a half an hour into a family get-together will lose differentiation because of the undifferentiated family ego bass that they called it. Anyway, won't go to the weeds. But the point is that one conceptualization is that in the beginning, as Jabri moved back into their house, he was able to be differentiated for the first number of days, but then eventually degraded his differentiation over time. And by the end, we saw what we saw, where he was acting like a teenager. When they were asking him, so when is the wedding? And he's like, I don't know. Where is the wedding? I don't know. And just his demeanor was that absolutely of a teenager in his approach. And I was watching this scene, I'm like, why is he acting that way? It's like, all he has to say is like, you know what, we're still working on that. And I don't know. And it's sort of embarrassing, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get it done, which they did. Anyway, so there were a number of other little, just watch that reaction video for my thoughts on that. And the mom could have also lost differentiation as they were living together and there was more enmeshment and more invitations for micromanaging and codependency. And she lost her own ability to think objectively. And by the end of it was fully back into her mindset of when Jabri was a child and was terrified and worried about him being beat up and put into a coma again. And all that was coming back for her. And then when after he moved out, there was still some hurt feelings, and maybe that's why they're distant. I don't know. So I wouldn't say jealousy was the reason, but so Ariel is saying that. But then she also had another conceptualization.
The mother-in-law, then it's kind of on the son.
All right. So she's saying it's kind of on you, and I would say that that's part of it for sure. If he would have been more differentiated and had held the line more with the mom of just like, hey, I get it that you're concerned. Thank you so much. But I just want to kind of do my own thing here. And I'm pretty sure I'm doing the right thing. I'm in love with her. We have a good relationship. I know you don't necessarily believe that, but you're just going to have to believe me. And I'm a grown man now. You're just going to have to let it go because it's my turn to take over my life. And thank you for, if you ever have any advice, I'd love to hear, that kind of, which he was kind of doing in the beginning. So he could have held on to that longer, which might have helped the mom instead of falling back into that childish position, which sucked the mom in. And we also saw an example. I mean, if we really just go down that road, remember there was a time when his family members were like, I don't think you should marry Miona. And he's just like, yeah, I don't think I should marry Miona. When we're like, wait, what? I thought you were absolutely going to marry her. So maybe that was another part of that lack of differentiation. It's like, oh, my family members think I shouldn't do that. And thus I shouldn't, because of that lack of differentiation between, okay, well, you're having that feeling. And that's fine, I guess. It's hurtful, but that's not what I know to be true. I know that I love her and I want to be with her. But that barrage of enmeshment would get into his head.
A lot of time because the son maybe is not giving the attention, or maybe Miona sort of came off as being a little bit defensive.
Yeah, maybe Miona did, but I didn't seem that way, at least the clips that we saw. She just seems really mellow in general, and I don't think it would be hard to detect that Miona might come across as a little aloof and maybe defensive, but I think from my viewpoint, it just looked like, oh, well, she's just super mellow. She's just a very calm, soft-spoken kind of person,
Like, in the beginning when she met your family. So maybe they felt like, oh, like what?
So you think my mom is jealous? You're the most jealous person on this whole cast, so how are you going to say that my mom?
Well, if I'm jealous.
Wait, so he's getting defensive about Ariella suggesting she might, well, that's not what she was saying. Ariella was saying, it's on you Did they edit something out? Because Arya was, let me rewind that.
Trying to compete with anyone, but there has been a weird energy, definitely.
If there's a problem with the mother-in-law, then it's kind of on the son a lot of the time because the son maybe is not giving the attention, or maybe Miona sort of.
Oh, I guess she is kind of saying potentially that Jabri's mom is jealous by saying that. Now, she's not saying Jabri, she's just generalizing. She's saying sometimes, but she is implying that perhaps Jabri didn't give the mom enough attention, and that's why the mom was jealous. Like, yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, he's a grown man, and it looked like he did give the mom a lot of attention, you know? So, and I don't think that's the reason why. I don't think the mom is jealous. And I think that that's often a conceptualization that the show will try to propagate, or that viewership will propagate, this sort of, I don't know, there's certain storylines that people are attracted to, you know, like the whole gold digger narrative. And anyway, so yeah, I guess she is kind of saying that the mom might be jealous. But didn't Jibri just say that everyone's against me because everyone's jealous of me, and he was essentially lumping his mom into that?
Came off as being a little bit defensive, like, you know, in the beginning when she met your family. So maybe they felt like, oh, like what?
So you think my mom is jealous? You're the most jealous person on this whole cast, so how are you going to say that mom?
So maybe for Jabri, it's like, well, I can talk crap about my mom, but you can't. And that's another example of enmeshment that people will have, that if you're enmeshed with your parents and you have difficulties with them, like, you might complain frequently about them. But if someone starts to complain or even agree with you, wow, yeah, your mom does sound like a jerk face. How dare you say, because of that enmeshed family dynamic. There are rules about enmeshment that don't allow for outsiders to, do those kinds of things. And that actually will keep the enmeshment going. But anyway, so then he says, you're the most jealous person, here. And yeah, is there someone in that room that has exhibited more jealous behavior? I don't think so. So yeah, it's true. But I don't think that's very cool to say. So maybe Ariella said, no, I'm not saying anything about you.
Well, if I'm jealous, can I recognize jealousy?
Right. Obviously,
Exactly,
you must be, because you...
Okay, that's a good comeback for Ariella. Well, if I'm the most jealous person, then maybe it's easy for me to see it. And then I love analyzing verbal fights like this, where people are they're in a mindset, they're in a mode of just trying to defend and attack and win. And Jabri thinks he's winning. He's like, you're saying my mom is jealous? Well, you're the most jealous person here. And that's illogical. The two don't cancel each other out, right? Like, you're going to accuse my mom of being a jerk face? Well, you're a jerk face. You're the biggest jerk face here. It's like, okay, but your mom is still a jerk face. What does me being a jerk face have to do with the possibility that maybe your mom is jealous of you, and you just said your mom was, anyway. And then so Ariella judos that, and just instead of being defensive, like, I'm not a jealous person, she's like, yeah, okay, I am a very jealous person, which is great. I'm glad she's able to admit that. Now, she doesn't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to be a jealous person. I think she has a lot of relational traumas, or at least some, that result in her being preoccupied and worried that she's going to lose someone unless she's hypervigilant about holding on to them and dictating closeness rather than just allowing people to come to her naturally. But anyway, so then he's like, well, I don't know why I always just kind of giggle at this, but let's rewind that.
You're the most jealous person on this whole cast, so how are you going to say that my mom...
Well, if I'm jealous, can I recognize jealousy?
Right. Obviously,
Exactly,
you
yeah.
must be, because you're jealous of everything.
Right. So like, he's like, right, somehow he just doesn't know what to say with that, right? Because he thinks he's winning, and then she agrees, she judos it, and he's like, yeah, I don't know.
You're jealous of my clothes.
No, I'm not jealous of nothing.
So I think Ariella was trying to lighten the mood, because earlier when they met backstage, they were bonding that they both had very shiny clothes and they were having a good moment. So I think Ari was trying to be like, hey, let's be friends.
Yeah. Say it, bro. Yes. She's jealous.
Just like Jibri, what he said, she's overprotect.
Come here. Like, you can't do that. You can't, especially him, because he's trying to pursue his dreams. So the more jealous you get, it's just gonna hold y'all back and y'all not gonna work out. Because he's gonna reach to the top.
I wonder if, for Jabri, he's going after Ariella because it reminds him of his mom. Ariella reminds him of his mom being overprotective and worrisome, micromanaging. And so he is transferring, he's displacing onto Ariella his feelings. And maybe this is the conversation he'd like to have with his own mother.
You're preventing him
but
from
why?
getting
He's
there.
going to reach to the top because he has people around him, including me, who help him and protect him.
No, you're pessimistic about his career as a fighter.
I believe Vinny could do anything that he wants. Like, he's got so much potential, but he needs someone to push him. And that's what I do. I do push him, but I also ask him to be realistic.
No, you're gonna hold him back.
Yeah, I think for Jabri, he's displacing or distorting or something, because the impression I got was that Ariel is absolutely supportive of Biniam's MMA career. But I think any spouse would be like, it's kind of dangerous. You could literally die. You could be permanently injured. You could also not succeed. There's all sorts of you could travel a lot. There's a lot of problems. You could have brain injuries that could change your personality or cause a lifetime of problems. You know, there's concerns. There's obvious you would be an unloving spouse if you didn't have those concerns. It doesn't mean that you prevent your partner from living their dream, but I think Ariella has expressed that. She's also expressed to be realistic, which I think is also important. Now, I don't know all the conversations that Ari and Binny have had about it, but, you know, we saw that scene where she was at ringside and was absolutely proud of him and encouraging him and that kind of thing. But, yeah, I think anyone should, even if I were Biniam's friend, I'd be like, so you're great, you're a great fighter, and maybe you'll go all the way to the top. And have you thought about other options along the way? Because if you put all your eggs in this basket and you get injured or things just don't work out, like, do you have other options? Because you might want to think about that, because there's a big need for some monetary gain or, you know, for a job, this kind of thing. So I said that funny, but you get the point. And Jabri is just like, nah, you're just jealous. You're bringing him down. And I wonder if also for Jabri, he has wanted to be a star for a long time, even in his teenage years. We could imagine that being true, and has felt that his mom has really prevented him all along the way. And then he also displaced onto Miona, because I don't remember seeing a lot of reasons why Jabri should think Miona was ruining his musical career. There was some displeasure, I think, for Miona, but again, I think it would be rational for someone to be like this. Like, so are you sure this is going to work out? Is this really the route to our happiness and your happiness? That kind of thing. Because, you know, even if you have a hit song, it usually doesn't produce that much money. And after a couple of years, like, the money completely goes away. So the chance of making a good living and being happy as a star in music especially is, you know, pretty low. And so I think Miona has at least some realism around that. I don't know. I'm reading it a lot.
You hating. You gotta stop. You gotta stop.
But for you, even your mom's hating, like, oh, my mother's jealous of my relationship.
No, that's not that.
Like,
it's the overprotective, overbearing stuff that you're talking about.
I feel like
it's
you
gonna
have an
hinder.
attitude like it's me against the world. Everyone's just jealous of me. Everyone's like this. You should be realistic too.
No, I'll be realistic. I'll fight you. We can set up a fight.
Wait, what? That escalated quickly. Wait, is he saying he's gonna fight Ariella? I mean, we've seen what Biniam can do to someone when he's trying to get them. Now, I'm sure Biniam is like, this is all kind of silly. I will say that when Guillermo met the other fellas, he instantly said to Biniam and Muhammad and Patrick, he says, you guys are muscly and I don't want to get in a fight with you guys. Like, you guys are big and strong. And Kara was like, no, honey, you could take them. Yeah, I think she was trying to preserve what she thought to be his masculinity. And Guillermo was just like, no, you guys, you'd kick my ass, that kind of thing. And I don't know, I just like that because it shows that for him, for Guillermo, he doesn't buy into toxic masculinity. He doesn't feel like he has to prove anything along those lines, which is cool.
$100,000, we'll fight. She's definitely holding him back.
But also what's not supportive is rolling up at his practice and threatening to fight his partner because she's a woman.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I'm a jealous person. Like,
Yeah, did I miss something? Was he actually threatening Ariella 100,000? Like, I'll pay me 100. I don't understand. What is Jabri saying? Let's rewind.
No, that's not that.
Like-
It's the overprotective, overbearing stuff that you're talking about.
I feel like
It's
you
gonna
have an
hinder.
attitude like it's me against the world.
Nah.
Everyone's just jealous of me. Everyone's like this. You should be realistic too.
No, I'll be realistic. I'll fight you. We could set up a fight. I got $100,000. We'll fight. She's definitely holding him back.
But also what's not supportive is rolling up at his practice and threatening to fight his partner.
I think something was edited out there, which is bothersome. She's saying, Kara's saying, rolling up at his practice. What? Okay, duh. Kara is saying about Ariella, what's not cool is rolling up at Biniam's practice and threatening to fight his sparring partner. Okay.
She is like, when I did this, she is jealous. I understand that you can be in love without being jealous.
If Thais saw me wrestling a girl on the floor,
Man,
she would have put the building would have been on fire.
for sure. Like in the floor?
Maybe if there was more communication, like it would be like easier to handle.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the crux of their problem, which is that she is prone to jealousy and hypervigilance and preoccupation, and he is prone to avoidance and lack of communication. In his mind, he thinks he's trying to preserve the relationship, but it actually inadvertently triggers her. There was a moment, I'm guessing, and I talked about this back when it happened, that he's like, oh, I have a female sparring partner. I should probably, Ariella going to be upset about that. Should I tell her no, is the answer. It's always no, don't tell her, because if I tell her, then that'll upset her. So if I avoid the whole thing, then everything will be okay. And sometimes that actually turns out to be true, because if Ariella hadn't shown up that day. But a lot of times it backfires, because she does show up and she's like, what's happening? And the fact that you didn't tell me means that you were trying to hide something from me, which means that there is something wrong here, right? Whereas if you would have said, just want to let you know, I have a sparring partner that's a woman. It's a very common thing. There's nothing going on between us. If you want to be there, or would you just like me not to spar with women? That will limit me, because I can learn a lot from all the fighters at the gym. So you have a conversation now. Maybe Ariella would have a little bit of upsettedness, but probably not to a great degree. I mean, she might say, well, I don't want you to do that. That'll worry me. But Ariella probably wouldn't attack him and say, like, why are you even asking me that? Like, well, I don't know, maybe. But at the very least, it's going to be 10 times worse if she discovers it, right? And this is a common thing that I will see in couples that I will treat, where like the avoidant person is going out to dinner with work people after work, and there's going to be some drinks. Let's say that it's in a heterosexual relationship, the wife that is going out with people at work, and she comes home to her preoccupied husband and says, yeah, it's just all ladies that I'm going out to dinner with. And maybe it was the first time. And then the second time they go out to dinner after work, there's a couple guys there. There's nothing happening, of course, but she knows that her husband will get very jealous of that and very triggered by that, and doesn't say anything to him. And then one of the people at the dinner get-together takes a picture, posts on the Instagram or something, and the preoccupied husband sees that photo and sees that there are guys. That would really cause a lot of issues, right? It's like, so you lied to me. And then she might say, well, I didn't lie to you because there weren't guys on the first one. I just didn't say anything about the second. And so by avoiding, you're actually creating so many more problems than lying. It's a very frequent problem, right? And I think for Biniam, he developed that because it was helpful to him when he was young to avoid getting hurt. I'm guessing that he just learned to avoid relationships because that actually did work to reduce his overall relational pain.
Here's who I like saw at work. Like, I don't ask him, you know what I mean?
Kobe, do you tell Emily everything that happened to you at work?
I tell her what she needs to know.
Oh.
Okay, first of all, that's everything, okay? He tells me everything.
You need a healthy amount of that. Because what happens when he does win this fight and he's getting $1 million a fight? You know how many girls are going to be chasing you?
Yeah, it's funny. So for Jabri, he is, I think, imposing his own issue because he's like, you're gonna make $1 million and all these women are gonna be chasing you. And I think for Biniam, he's like, well, what? So I think Jabri is really in a mindset of, which would kind of explain a lot of his behavior, maybe even just coming on the show to begin with, that he's really stuck in this, well, I don't know if stuck is the right word for it. In one way, you could say, in a negative way, you could say he's stuck in a teenage mindset of, I'm going to be the greatest. And everything is sort of framed around that. It's not a narcissistic thing. It's an achievement, goal-oriented hope and a way of framing what is good in life. So that's the negative way. I guess the not negative way would be to say that he's just very oriented towards career and fame and making it. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs will be this way. They will be internet entrepreneurs or something, and they're always scheming and thinking about how they're going to have that awesome website or whatever. So in a positive way, you could say that that's the way he's oriented. But it's just interesting the kinds of ways in which he sees the world as it comes out on the tell-all.
She should
Put a coat over her thong, right?
When I came here to America, it took time to understand the culture more and her lifestyle as well.
He's learning. He's actually expanding his relationship. He gonna work out. Y'all ain't gonna work out.
I would say the same about you guys, but
nah, it ain't gonna work out for y'all.
Wow, I think Jabri's having some issues with Ariella. Maybe he came into the tell-all with some transference against Ariella or something, but complete non sequitur. They're talking with Eva Muhammad, and Jabri just inserts himself and uses it as an attack against Ariella and Biniam, saying that you're not going to work out, which could also just be like some projective identification around his own insecurities about his own relationship with Miona. Because I would say of all the relationships in that room, the Miona-Jabri relationship doesn't seem, I mean, I imagine that they might work out. They don't seem to fight much, but it also just seemed like they didn't really know each other extremely well. Also, Jabri is proving himself to be kind of volatile in some ways in terms of his emotions. I'm not sure, but even Muhammad, I would say, is another relationship that doesn't seem extremely strong, but it's hard for me to tell, obviously, just watching a reality TV show. But of the relationships in that room, I would say Ariella and Biniam have, at least what we've seen, on the show in the various seasons, they have the greatest chance, in my opinion, to last. Not only because I think they've learned from their mistakes, but they also have been together a long time in person and are still together. And this last season, the conflicts that were shown to us, which weren't many, I think were a little drummed up. So I don't think that when they're together in the same home, they don't have the issues. When they were separated and he was in Ethiopia and she was in the States, I think that triggers her and him to some extent. So he would avoid more and she would preoccupy more. And that led to that feedback loop that we saw in those seasons where they were almost going to divorce. But I think if they're together, she can be reassured, like, well, he's not cheating on me because I can see him, that kind of thing. But it's interesting how for Jabri, he just keeps bringing it back to Ariella. And the only conceptualization I can think of is that she resembles his own mom, and he has a lifetime of anger at his mom that he has maybe never really expressed.
You don't think Ari and Benny's relationship is going to work out?
Y'all fake. Y'all ain't gonna work out.
we're fake.
Yeah.
Ooh.
No, I'm just giving you the truth.
So it's the guy in the $1 million suit.
I feel like $1 million. And you're gonna be mad when your man's wearing $1 million suit. Watch.
Yeah, just really set on, and Biniam's just not even getting involved, which I think is great. He's just like, all right. And that's differentiation. When I talk about differentiation, that ability to say like, okay, well, you're having that issue and I know it to be not true. I'm sure Biniam and Ariella are both just like, that's ridiculous. One, it's not true. Two, how in the world would you know what our relationship is like? And so you just say, okay, you're over there and you have that opinion, and I'm over here and I know better, and I don't even really need to engage with you because your thoughts and feelings don't really matter. And in this moment, I'm going to consciously distance myself from you and those ideas because I just don't think you have a leg to stand on. Whereas if you are in a relationship with someone you trust and you love, you can voluntarily and evaluate the situation to actually merge a little bit more and to live in each other's emotional spaces because there's safety to do so, but you have a choice to do that, right?
Jabri, why do you think they're not going to work out?
I know they're not going to work out. It's not I don't think. She
Why?
too jealous. She too jealous. You're holding him back. She's holding you back, bro.
She's holding him back even though he is active within the MMA community and has no restrictions on that, even though I would think a lot of spouses would put more restrictions on that. You know, like if I decided to become an MMA fighter, I am sure that my wife would have a huge problem with that. I don't know what she would do about it, but I mean, the first thing she'd do is laugh and say like, good luck, buddy.
Star, you know what I mean? And you're gonna get there. She's holding you back. She's not a star. She's dimming your light. I'm just being real with you.
Now, for Ariella, I think it might be harder for her to differentiate, but I think she's doing pretty well thus far. But with differentiation, over time, it will erode naturally. The most differentiated, mature person in the world eventually will lose sight of their goals, will lose sight of their differentiation, and will get triggered and get involved. And I think Ariella might be, at least her facial expression might be turning that corner.
And you are going to be losing your mind.
The difference is how you handle your jealousy. Everybody's jealous. How you express your jealousy, that's what matters.
Ding, 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 ding. Not everyone's jealous, but everyone doesn't want to lose their partner. But yes, it's how you express it. Kobe has continually impressed me throughout this season. He seems to have a lot of emotional intelligence and a lot of wisdom about these kinds of things. I mean, just think about all that. Now, he's lost it a couple times, twice to be precise, and where he used verbally abusive language. The first time didn't go so well for the two of them. The second time, I think it actually alerted Emily that, oh, I think I crossed a line there. And then she apologized. We didn't ever see him apologize for telling her to F off. Remember when that happened? So that shows that she can adjust, and she did. So ding, 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 ding. It's those kinds of statements almost never are said on this show.
But it's different when there's a million women in his inbox, you know, being like, oh, if you need a green card, come marry me. The tighty-whitey scene, talk about my man's junk, okay? So many DMs about it. I'm like, all right, well, we all the time, so all these women can back off.
Kobe, what is this about the tight?
Is that a thing? I mean, it makes sense, right? That randos would DM him. I'm guessing that, well, Kenny talked about that, right? He was talking to Steven and Alina and saying, Steven, just so you know, Kenny was saying, I'm an openly gay guy, and there were women sending me boob pictures. So it's definitely going to be happening to you, and you just have to ignore it. And I just think, like, what's going on there? Of course, there are trolls, but, well, if I were to conceptualize it, there's a lot of loneliness going on, and it can, particularly during the pandemic and even after as we emerge out of the pandemic, maybe finally, because this year we've seen, I think I saw a stat that the majority of COVID cases were in 2022. And with Omicron and the various different variants, there's been a lower percentage of death, but there's been so many people with COVID that there's still a lot of people dying. And so we're basically still in I don't know the definition precisely, but there's been enough reason for me to have been concerned for the first 6 months of this year. There was a lull in between the two variants that me and Stacey went to Disneyland, and I didn't feel comfortable. I wore masks almost all the time when I was inside. But anyway, so as we emerged from even before the pandemic, there was a lot of loneliness and a lot of disconnection as a result of the way our society is structured with capitalism, materialism, and other kinds of problems in our society, bad trends, and it's only getting worse. Body shaming, another issue. And the pandemic made it a lot worse, and people are trying to reorient themselves. And when people do try to emerge and interact with people, there's we're out of practice with socializing. I felt this way when I finally got vaccinated. Well, not finally, but when the vaccination was finally available, and I got vaccinated, I think March of 2021. As a therapist, I was able to get it earlier. And when I started entering into the world again, I remember feeling really disjointed and quickly irritable about things. And I thought, I don't think I'm used to being in public and interacting with randos. Everything is irritating me. I was elated at the same time. I felt like I had a superpower, the ability to actually go out into the world again. Anyway, so there's a lot of loneliness, and I'm guessing that there's a lot of people at home just going like, I need to connect. And so they send boob pics to people because what they're really trying to establish is like a connection, some kind of relationship, some kind of attachment, companionship.
Whitey Whiteys?
Ask him what's on his underwear right now.
Can you show us what's on your
Can you
underwear,
show him?
please?
Show him, babe.
Nah.
Come on, just show a little bit. Yeah.
What we talking about? Oh, boy. Oh, goodness. You better show him, Kobe. I'm sure.
Oh my goodness. It's just classic. So, these nice moments are what keep me going on this show. It's extra comical because he's wearing such a dad outfit. He has this nice button-up shirt, actually similar to the one I'm wearing. Just very regular American dad uniform. It's funny how, remember with Rebecca and Zied, they had their photographs on all sorts of things, each other, blankets and shirts, and I think credit cards. Didn't Rebecca have his photo on one of her custom credit cards? Wasn't that the case? And so it's interesting how there's a fine line between what people would deem as creepy and over the top and what might be. Do people consider this cute? I mean, I guess I do. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.